Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up the agenda so we can get started. You guys see that okay? All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I've got the agenda pulled up on the screen. I hope everybody can see it. I can't see all of you, so if for some reason there's an issue, just feel free to speak out. And we're going to start with opening up for public comment on the agenda itself. So if anybody would like to comment, and because I can't see all of your faces, please don't hesitate to unmute yourself. Okay, I'm not hearing any comments, so I'm going to go ahead and move to the next part of our agenda. And Tom, I apologize. So the meeting was called to order at 5:03. Thank you graciously for being willing to take our minutes as we're in a transition to get a new minute taker. Super appreciate you for that. So just want to review the agenda, the mission, which is to offer advice to the St. Albans Police Department for the successful implementation of 21st century policing strategies and to assist the police department in following the established roadmap as amended by City Council. As far as the meeting minutes go, this is where we would typically consider approval of them. We did not get the meeting minutes for June, so we're going to have to table that until next month. Get those drafted up and sent out to everyone, and we'll approve next month. So we're going to go ahead and table that. So the next thing on our agenda, and I realize we're moving quickly, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because we have some great stuff to get into. But the verbiage that was used on the city website, and now I feel like, you know, a good amount of time has passed, but I wanted to at least note that after the last meeting, the website had been updated. The word death wasn't appropriate, and it was updated to murder in reference to George Floyd's murder. I wanted to just note that change did happen immediately after the last Police Advisory Board meeting. Any comment or questions before I jump to the next piece on the agenda? Okay, moving right along. So the community policing survey, an update on that. And this, so there's, I know it's confusing because there's two different surveys, right? There's the Police Advisory Board survey, and then there's the actual survey that was being done by St. Albans Police Department. And there has been a change in that. Chief Lamothe, are you comfortable kind of giving the overview of the decisions you guys had made on the delivery system?
Yep, let me just turn my volume up. Yeah, so we heard the complaints and the concerns regarding our delivery system. So from here forward, we'll go with mail. I just don't have a timeline. Lieutenant Weatherby's still out. He'll be out at least another month. When he gets back, he'll get back to work on how that's going to look going forward. So it could be a little bit delayed, but when and if, I'd say if. We're going to move forward with it, but when we do, it's going to be by mail.
Great, thank you for that update. Okay, and then the next piece on the agenda was the key areas of focus. And one of the things that I listed was we had talked as a group about whether we continue to do Zoom or in-person meetings for our Police Advisory Board meetings. We did learn that we don't have the ability at City Hall to do hybrids. So it would need to be in person, but there is a call-in option for board members. So starting next month, the Police Advisory Board meetings are going to be in person at City Hall on Main Street in the second floor conference room. They're going to be at the same time. So same time, same day, just location will be in person with a call-in option for the board members. And I'll make sure that information is distributed to everyone. Any comment on that, or do we want to jump to the next piece? Okay, so moving forward, the next piece that we were going to talk about and really want to get some feedback from our board, because it feels like we haven't had a solid decision on the public comment at the end of the meeting. There's been some advocacy to have the chief stay present so he can hear that public comment, and then there's been advocacy to not have him. To date, he's said goodbye prior to the public comment portion. Hold on, I gotta mute you a little bit, Winnie. There's background noise there. Okay. So just wanted to bring that back up because there seemed to be obviously some great value to have him present and to hear the comments. And also we want people from the public to feel comfortable in sharing openly. So there was a thought of maybe doing that quarterly, but I'm going to turn it to you, board members, to get your thoughts, comments, and see if we want to put it up for a vote so a decision can be made, because we're now in the 7th month of the Police Advisory Board meeting taking place, and it still seems to not have been decided. So. Any thoughts on that? Any comments? Is everyone comfortable with the? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Oh God, this has been really fun afternoon. So I know Danielle, she's on, and she, or maybe it was someone else, just made a statement about if we go down this path, which I would be in favor of at least once a quarter, chief being present for public comment to be able to hear. I think we would want to make sure that this is really about being able to hear and listen, and not necessarily have it, be about a lot of responding. So it really is an opportunity for chief to hear the concerns of the community and be able to take those in, which I have full confidence in him, but I just wanted to set that expectation down, maybe before we vote, from my perspective, that would really be what this would be about. It's a listening opportunity, not necessarily an open debate.
Yes,
Thank you.
Jamie, sorry, it's Danielle. I'm in agreement with that. I want to be in favor of that.
Thank you, Danielle. Sorry, I didn't mean to speak for you, but I wasn't sure if you were able to get unmuted or not.
Thank you, Jamie and Danielle. Any other comment? Winnie, Tom?
I'm also in favor of that. Just point blank.
Thank you, Tom. Winnie, any thoughts before we put it up for a vote? I think she's trying to unmute. There you go.
Yeah, I'm in favor of just listening without because this person will be saying whatever is happening from their perspective and their truth. So it wouldn't be it should not be a dialogue at that point. It's just to listen, take down the information, and if there's any probing questions, then those questions should be then redirected in writing, so that we have this clear dialogue of what is happening, what is being said, and there won't be no perception or shuns on what is being said or done.
Thank you, Winnie. So at this point, I think I'm going to put it up for a vote, and correct me if I'm wrong. What I'm hearing is that the intention is moving forward, that during the public comment portion of the Police Advisory Board meeting, we would ask the chief to be present quarterly. So can I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jamie. And can I get a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Tom. All in favor, thumbs up or say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay, so the motion's passed, and I do see hi Chris, welcome. Our board member Chris Lucan just joined it. I'm going to give her just a brief overview on that piece to let her know that we did in fact vote. So hi Chris, we just voted to go ahead and have the chief be present on a quarterly basis for the public comment portion of the Police Advisory Board meetings moving forward. So I'll send an email out so we can determine which meeting. I don't think it should be the next one. The next one, we're going to have some changes already with just going to in person, but following that, we can determine when to start that quarterly process. Thank you all. Okay, so the next piece on our agenda is Just highlighting a little bit about community partnership. So Chris and Winnie have attended the Franklin Grand Isle Community Partnership meetings a couple of times. Danielle, I think, has attended historically. We are going to, the Police Advisory Board has been invited to present in the fall. So I'll keep people posted on that. We're still figuring out the schedule because there are monthly presenters, and in December, our legislators have the month of December. So we're looking for the Police Advisory Board more than likely in October or November. So this is far in advance, but just wanted to give people a heads up. The more Police Advisory Board members that can attend that day, the better. And to provide a brief history, the Franklin Grand Isle Community Partnership, it is a group of providers and people in the community that have been meeting for years. It was a funded program, and in 2008 the funding was disbanded, but the Franklin Grand Isle communities continue to meet, and we have presentations from various initiatives. There's upwards, I do the attendance, we have over 208 people in it who receive the emails with the weekly updates of new initiatives going on in the community. We also have 52 plus organizations that have attended at any given time. So this group has a far reach, great people who do a lot of work in our community, and it's open to community members regardless of where you work and what you do. So just wanted to put the information out to our board members. I'll send you more detail on the time and date moving forward. And once we determine which month our Police Advisory Board can get, I'll let you know, but just wanted to get this kind of in the back of your minds as we get, I don't want to say closer to the fall because it's scary to think that, but we're getting closer to the fall. So that was the update for the partnership. The next piece that we have is the policy and procedure, and I'm going to turn that over to Jamie. I know that you've been doing some great work. I did, hopefully everybody saw in their packets the 3 policies that were looked at and worked on.
Yeah, thank you, Melinda. Yes, so we have 3 policies before the group tonight. I would like to do them in the following order because I think we need to probably spend a little bit more time as a group based on our scope on the social media policy, just so that we're clear on what it means, and that you know, we can give the community some clear expectations to what that one means. And then there's a secondary one about body worn cameras. We actually can spend the least amount of time on that because there's been a recent change that Chief will update us on. And then we also have one about serving the protection orders that we can spend a little time on as well. So if we could do them in order of the social media, the protection order, and then body worn cameras last, Chief, I think that makes the most sense operationally for our team.
Okay. So first of all, I appreciate the time that the team that worked on these policies spent, because as I've said before, the policies are kind of dry and monotonous for me, and I'm guessing more so for you because you're reading them and they get kind of redundant. But so I do appreciate the time you put into these because they're kind of monotonous. But social media. So this policy, again, I don't reinvent the wheel. So I don't know if the city's gonna come out with that. I kind of got alluded to a couple of maybe last month or the month before that the city may be coming out with their own. If they do, then this could be revisited. Until then, this is our department policy. If the city comes out with one that's different, better, more stringent, then maybe we'll look at that. If they come out that's looser or not as stringent, then we'll stick with ours. So again, this may have some edits coming down the road, but for now, this is a policy we have in place. It's a CLIA-based policy. It just basically protects the department and dictates or restricts what officers can and cannot post both on and off duty. I can go through it or I can answer questions, but it basically lists that anytime they're on any type of social media, they have to believe that they are representing the police department, and it's known by the public that they are a representative of the city and the police department. So whatever they post is to be taken that way. And they can't use any reference to their job on or off duty as well. They can't share information about their job, that could identify somebody that they've dealt with in a professional capacity. And it talks about anytime they do anything like that, they'll be held to standards of conduct policy as far as for a policy violation as well. So they could be in violation of this policy, and they could also be in violation of standards of conduct policy. So it makes it pretty clear. I think it's pretty well done. I leaned on Jamie actually a lot for review of this because I know Northwestern Medical Center has the same type of policy, and I think it came out pretty well. And I'm happy to answer questions, but short of reading it, I'm not sure how much to get into.
Chief, I think one question, and I think I've asked this of you already, so I know it's probably repetitive, but I'd like to ask it for the benefit of the board is,
Yep.
So if I'm a person in the community who knows that somebody is a St. Albans PD police officer, and I see something that fits into this category, any of the categories that you've listed here, that I find concerning, that is something that I could issue a concern about with SAPD following that grievance process, and that would generate an investigation. Is that correct?
Yeah, just like any complaint about anything from driving to conduct to social media, any complaint or concern follows the same procedure. Just make a complaint and we handle it just like everything else. This just gives us a policy of which to look at for disciplinary action, and we can say that the officers had guidance. They knew there was a policy in place. Where before, if you don't have a policy, it's hard. When you look at a complaint, you try to find a place that they violated a procedure or policy. If you don't have a procedure or policy, you're kind of stuck. So policy is always made when somebody does something wrong. It's usually made after the fact. So we try to get policies in place. I hate to say it, but they're designed to protect the department. So somebody makes a complaint about social media. Now we have a place that we can say, okay, it's clearly a violation of this policy. But yes, to answer your basic question is, somebody has a complaint about something on social media. Now we have an easy place to reference and see if it fits about this policy as a violation.
Do other folks from the committee have questions around this, generally around, this is the police individual's personal use of social media. We did discuss a different police approved social media page in our last meeting, but is there any, does the team have any questions on this? Winnie, were you raising your hand? Sorry, okay, sorry. So I think, Melinda, we just need a motion at this point to recommend this for City Council approval. I think that's how we've been doing it.
Yeah, so if there's no comment from any board members, then if we can get a motion to approve this policy.
This is Danielle. I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Danielle. And can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tom. All in favor, say aye or thumbs up.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay, so it looks like the motion passed. So the next one, Jamie, that you had listed, if you can remind me, I'll get it pulled up on the screen. Was it the court ordered?
Why are you on camera?
Yes. No, court ordered, the serving of the court ordered protection first.
Okay.
No, that's okay. Then body worn cameras.
Court protection orders. This is a new policy for us. I wrote this. I have very little guidance on this, to be honest with you. There was a clear policy on court orders for service, but it's kind of very loosely written. So the reason we wrote this was historically, we get a lot of protection orders granted in Franklin County, and I'm not sure why, so please don't ask me a question, but we get a lot of orders granted in Franklin County by the courts. So anybody can apply for a court order, whether it's a stalking order or a restraining order, and those are two different things, but those are both court orders. Judges, in my experience, most of the time grant them, and the reason I think judges most of the time grant them is because they want to give that plaintiff some type of insurance that the person's going to leave them alone and separate from them vacate the residence, whatever the case may be. So anyways, they grant a lot of these orders. When the orders get granted, they get sent to the agency that covers that area, whether it be Vermont State Police that covers, most of the towns of Franklin County, the Sheriff's Department, which covers the town now, or us, who covers the city, and sometimes Highgate. With our larger population base in the city, we tend to get a lot of court orders. The reason I wrote this policy was because when an order hits our desk, I wanted some assurance and something to fall back on, that to know that these orders were going to be served in a timely manner. Because although it's just a piece of paper, it gives that plaintiff some assurance that we're going to attempt to serve it right away, because I can read the first line of the policy and it very clearly says that research reveals that nearly 1/3 of all female homicide victims in the United States are killed by husband or boyfriend. Well, if this paper can somehow separate them after something has happened and plaintiff feels threatened enough to approach the court for order, then we should be trying to serve it. So this dictates that we'll make a timely attempt to serve them, and that we will follow through the process up into prosecution or arresting the person if they violate the order. So that's what the purpose of this was, to make sure we attempt to do it, how we will go about attempting to do it, every reasonable effort we made to attempt to do it, the enforcement of the orders. If the order is then violated, how will we enforce them, and what our practice will be when we are vacating people. As Chris and I have discussed, a couple of our services haven't been as clean as they could have been. And I understand, from having served hundreds and hundreds of these over my career, and literally hundreds, because we get these, there's times when there's 20 of these on the screen at a time to be served. So these are very, very frequent. They're very tense situations, and sometimes officers lackadaisical with the people that are being vacated from their house to de-escalate situations and try to appease them to leave peacefully. But that doesn't always play well with the plaintiff, and the plaintiff feels that the officers can be taking sides or making light of the situation. This kind of dictates how that's going to look, so it doesn't come across that way. Even if there's no intent, which I believe there never is, but it does sometimes, it can feel like you're just trying to get defendant out there, so you're playing a little nice with them when that shouldn't be the case. So anyway, this dictates how those are going to go. It's very clear cut, it's very cut and dry on how these orders are going to play out from this point forward. So that's why I wrote it. It's more of a procedural thing than anything else. I didn't see a big issue with us doing. I definitely didn't see an issue with not serving them. We were very timely on them, much better than I've ever seen any other agency I've been at anyway. Very timely, but I just wanted it in writing, and I wanted it to be more clear on how we were serving them. That's the short of it.
Steve, if we can go back up to the top. Oh, Melinda, can you bring that one back up? I think we made updates that I don't see here, and I thought I saw it in social media too, but I questioned myself. So Melinda, are you using the most up-to-date ones, or Chief, did you make updates that maybe didn't get all the
yes,
way through?
Melinda does not have the most up-to-date one.
Okay.
Yep, that is
No, 'cause I know there was a specific statement.
Yeah, the statement we moved up is not under policy anymore. So I apologize
Yeah.
however that played out, but Melinda, you actually have the very first copy, and that doesn't include any of the changes that Jamie's team made.
Yeah, because we also
So
talked
I
about,
think, go ahead, Chris.
that we just, also, I didn't see in there that we talked about it being a high priority.
Yeah, that's all changed. That's in
Yeah,
there.
that's the language.
I can
yes.
read you that line. Under policy now, it says the St. Albans Police Department recognizes the important process of orders to include service enforcement. As such, is policy of this law enforcement agency to effectively and efficiently serve the orders in a timely manner and fully enforce these orders, and to that end, maintain a system that will provide up-to-date information on these orders to officers responding to domestic disturbance. That's been added.
And I do see a comment from a member of the public in the from Ryer on the side here. And I know we've talked about the using gender neutral terms and references in our policies in the past. I don't believe we talked about it specifically on this one, but I do know that opening paragraph refers to female deaths. And I imagine that that's a true statistic, but
That's a
it
stat.
does raise the question is, yeah, do we want to have that in this policy? And I think that's a reasonable question, or is there a different way to say that? I don't know the answer to that, but I think it's a good question to ask.
I think that's a good question, but I think for the purpose of in my mind anyway, the purpose of how important this policy is and these orders are, I think that one line anyway should remain the way it is, female, because it is female homicide. That's statistically, that wasn't something I made up or pulled up. That's a statistic. And I think that that's important to realize. And it doesn't, not that it's relevant, but we do serve most of these on males and behalf of females, but that one line is that this is an important piece of paper and this is an important document or important policy for that reason right there.
I agree. I
And is
think
that,
For the people that do not identify themselves as male or female, I think that we should be very mindful of that community as well. Because if this person does not identify as a male or female and you show up with an order of protection to serve on them and it says male or female and they don't identify, that will trigger again something else. So and I understand, Chief, that you got to tread a thin line, but we have to be conclusive. We have to include everyone in the community. And I know you're saying from your experience, well, the map has been changing lately. It's more openness. And so instead of he or she or a person.
But that's just a stat. That has nothing to do with, that's just a stat that's used when you go to trainings on anything to do with domestics. That their gender or how they identify it is not on any of the orders we serve. That's not referenced at all.
Chief, with all due respect, what I'm saying, and I know I speak with an accent, so I'm going to go slowly so that we could get this clearly. We're talking about saying Albans Police Department. We're not talking about training. We're not going there. We're talking about St. Albans Police Department. If you are going to serve an order of protection or you're going to deliver whatever you got to do with it, and you come, for example, to Jane's house, Jane identified herself, this person identified themselves as a human being. And you come with he, she, or it, or you, well, is he at home or whatever. So what I'm saying is that the language is being changing all around, and St. Albans is no different. So if I'm pointing something out to you, it's not for you to get all defensive and, go to training. No, we're not talking about training. Thank you.
Oh, okay, we'll take that stat out. That's just a national stat. We'll take it out.
I think.
can I weigh in
Minnie's
here?
Point well taken.
I don't think you can weigh in. I think
go
we'll
ahead.
just take it out.
Go ahead, Chris.
Well, I think we've talked in other policies, the gendered language, and we've really tried to reduce that. And, we actually didn't talk about that when we looked at this policy, but that's something that should obviously happen. But we are talking about gender-based violence, and in our experience, that doesn't take away from anybody who doesn't identify as female that may be victimized by violence, and that's okay to take that stat out. That's been our experience, but I do agree that the all the language should represent what we want it to represent, and that's not be so gendered.
Yeah, I think I agree, Winnie. We've made a conscious effort to make sure we're using they and their across all policies. This is a stat, and I believe it is a true stat that is gender-based, for better or for worse. I do, now that we're kind of talking about this, Chief, maybe for future reference, we can take it out of this one, but I think maybe adding a background section to some policies where we want to quote stats probably creates that fine line between what is fact, a published fact, versus how we're engaging our policy. However we want to do it this way, I think the committee has spoken, but for future reference, a stat like that probably can live in a background section, and that makes it a little bit easier to separate.
I'd be happy to provide some background.
I think we've been good about the language with their and they.
Yeah.
This one, like I said, I didn't, again, it was a stat, I can take it out. I was just trying to put the importance of this policy to the officers, and they read it, so they realize that a lot of these end up in deaths, and they do happen to be, in this case, according to the national stats, female, but we can take it out.
Yep.
I'm sick of arguing.
So with that change and a couple of the other changes that we proposed, including making sure that this is a language around this being a high priority for our police officers, are we comfortable with moving it forward to City Council with those changes noted? And we would be looking for a motion for that as well. Melinda.
Yeah, so if is there any further comment from the board before I ask for a motion? Okay, so putting up the motion to make the changes just spoke about and to bring this to City Council, can I get a motion?
This is Danielle. I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Danielle. Can I get a
And
second?
I second that.
Thank you, Winnie. All in favor, thumbs up,
Aye.
or say aye. Any opposed, same sign? Okay, motion passed. So the next policy, Jamie, I'll pull it up. I don't know that if there were edits made that I have the most recent version.
That's a good question.
In fact, yeah, I think Melinda, why don't you pause right there? I'm looking it up as we speak, because in this case, and Chief can speak to it while I'm pulling it up.
Yeah, this
There's
was
a
kind of on me.
statewide policy now.
Yeah, so this is not a statewide mandated policy. What happened was we had spent quite a bit of time talking about the body worn camera policy that we had written. So St. Albans Police Department was one of the first departments in the state to get body worn cameras. Way back when it was a new kind of a new invention, I guess, a new thing. They were one of the first, and they wrote a policy. I think it was like 2012 or 13, and we just wanted to update our policy. So I tweaked it a little bit, and I sent it to Jamie's crew, and then we met and started looking at it, and we made some changes, not a lot, but we went through it pretty detailed. And then coincidentally, ironically, because we wasted some serious time on this, and I just happened to go to the Vermont Criminal Justice Training Council. I was just looking for some language on something else, and I came across a not mandated, but a suggested policy they had written on body worn cameras before I got in this position. So I took their policy instead, because I'm assuming that most agencies have gone to the Vermont Criminal Justice Training Council body worn camera. So we're going to take theirs. It just makes more sense that all agencies are on the same one. And just a sideline on that, the state has now gone to the state use of force policy. So I'll be showing that to you guys when it comes out officially. We got it unofficially a couple weeks ago, but by October 1st, every department in the state of Vermont is going to be on the same use of force policy now. They're on the same taser policy now. I think you're going to see more and more of that happen. But either way, I'll show you that when we get it official, but it will be, they're saying by October 1st, well, I'll be on the same one. But anyway, so this body worn camera policy was sent and released by the Criminal Justice Training Council. Again, so I just opted to use this because it's very, very similar anyway. It's just the language is slightly different in the wording, but it's all in the same thing. So I appreciate everything Jamie's crew did again. It was before my time, so I had no idea they had this in place. So I looked through, and it doesn't appear there's any more that are out there that snuck up behind me on this one. So the highlights of this are, just so you know, the very first line, it complies with Vermont Statute 219 Act 147 is where this came from, which basically says that all agencies as of January 2022 will have body worn cameras. The state passed that last year, but they gave agencies time to purchase them. Just so everybody has a little history on body worn cameras. The cameras don't cost you that much. I'm ballparking here, but I don't think cameras are much more than $1,000 a piece. That's not the cost. It's incredibly expensive to store the data. Incredibly expensive. We're a small PD, and it costs us around 60 grand a year. It's incredibly expensive. So that's where the cost is. And that's why they gave departments the time to get geared up, because you're spending a substantial amount of money storing data. So anyway, this policy just states that we have body worn cameras. We've had them again for years. So it really isn't anything for us. You have cameras, you're going to wear them. Why you're wearing them: to enhance officer safety, and document statements, document crime scenes. The procedure, you wear them all the time. You can't wear any camera but our camera. You can't edit them, erase them, alter them, duplicate them. I don't even know how you could do that. It's a pretty good secure system. When you wear them, all calls for service, even if citizen contact is not expected. So we added that line, that A line under when will we use them. It used to say just if citizen contact, if you had citizen contact. So I added all calls for service. And the reason I added that is a lot of times you're going to a call for service, and I'll use an example of a suspicious complaint. Somebody calls and says, I heard a noise in my garage or behind my garage or whatever, on my porch, whatever the case may be, on my porch, but they didn't see anybody. And next thing you know, you get there, and lo and behold, there is somebody. And that's happening a lot now, because we have a massive influx of homeless population living outside of our houses right now, because the homeless shelters are all shut down. We're getting that. So if we're going to go to calls of suspicious complaints, not really in the past, we didn't come across people often. Now we are. We should be activating our cameras. So other than that, use them for all traffic stops, all citizen transports, investigatory stops, foot pursuits, law enforcement events, citizen contacts initiated by officers. When will it stop? When will recording stop? Or we shall include all arrests, searches, seizures, consent searches, Miranda warnings, statements by citizens, defendants, canine searches, and written violations. It pretty much tells you that they're use them pretty much all the time. There's a few times you can't use them. This policy didn't go into a lot of restrictions. Can't use them when people are picketing or protesting because that's First Amendment demonstration, unless you feel a criminal act is happening or about to occur, so you can get something recording. Can't use them for sensitive nature. Recording may be stopped in case of sensitive nature, such as domestic assault or sexual assault, once the offender has been removed. So initially, when you get there, there's likely to be some evidentiary value to that. But once the evidentiary value is gone, then you can shut your recorder off. You shouldn't be using it when you're interacting with a person seeking animosity. If they're going to anonymously, if they're going to give some information to you, officers should, when reasonable and when circumstances allow, obtain consent prior to recording interviews with crime victims. In all instances, officers, where the officer deliberate stops recording, the officer will make a verbal notification of why they're stopping it, and officers are not permitted to use privately owned cameras. I added the bold line under officer's responsibility because that's our internal system. Just tells you they'll tag body worn cameras, and what that means, tagging means, is they will go in the recordings and put a case number with it, because what our system does is it purges. I think it's after 6 months automatically, and what that does, it saves you a little bit of storage, because again, storage is unbelievably expensive. Once they tag it, saved forever. So it just helps reduce, and I think that it holds it automatically, like I said, for 6 months. But after that, if it's not been tagged, it goes away. So this just outlines they have to tag it. That wasn't in our policy before, so officers, I guess, could forget, or but they're pretty good about it, because anything that gets sent to the state's attorney has to be tagged, because it has to go as evidence. Recording equipment will capture all events if it can, and that's pretty much it. I mean, it's the rest of it's how you're going to store and document it. And we also have our watch guard system, which is in the cars. There's not a policy for that, because that automatically turns on anytime you turn on blue lights or sirens. So that's kind of a no fault system. Most agencies have opted to go away from both. We're one of the few agencies that are running both cameras. And the reason we do that is because your watch guard is mounted on your body worn camera is mounted on your chest. And when you're sitting in your car, it doesn't record much more than your steering wheel and your dash. So it's a little bit worthless for recording something that's happening outside of your car if you're sitting in your car. That's why we use both systems. And that's what I've got.
Thank you. Any comment from the board?
I just have a general question. no major concerns about this policy, but in general, Chief, I know you indicated we're going to see more of these coming from the state, and some of them may supersede ones that we already have.
I believe so.
As those things happened, what's the obligation that you have to be strict with the state? Can you go stricter and less strict? What are the rules around adopting state policies?
My understanding, and this is all new with the state mandated policies, the use of force one is actually the first one I know of that's going to actually say in the taser one, they're going to say mandated. My understanding is they are mandated. That's it. There's no changing them. There's no editing them.
Okay.
That's it. But it's probably open to change because this is new for them too. So for the first time since I've been around this job forever, that they've hired somebody at the state level that's writing policy. And I believe it's not taking anything away from smaller agencies or anything like that, but writing policy takes a long time. It takes a lot of effort. And I think that this just alleviates some agencies out there saying, look, I'm sorry, I just didn't have time to do it. Or look, I'm sorry, it lagged, whatever. So this, I think that's great, to be honest with you. I mean, it keeps us all on the same page. And honestly, if they're willing to do the work, I'm willing to adopt the policy. And looking at the use of force policy they just put out, I'm suspecting October 1st, they put a substantial amount of work into it. I'm very happy with it. I don't think you're gonna see any corners cut, but I'll be glad to share them. And they're open. I can tell you this, they've sent 20, maybe 25 drafts of this thing. So it's not like they're doing it on their own. They're asking for input after input after input after input. So if it comes out and people aren't happy with it, meaning chiefs or a colonel or sheriffs, it's on us because they've asked for all the input they can ask for.
And we'll still see those policies come
Absolutely.
before us for discussion, even if our choices are limited. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, you'll see
Thank
it. And and I'll point out stuff if I think it's, hey, we meaning this community may not like this, I'll let you know, but I don't think there's gonna be room for deliberation or editing. And maybe that'll be different. Maybe that'll be pushed down to us in a different way. Maybe it'll be, here's mandated, but it's up to you to make it yours. But I don't get that impression because they're actually, the use of force one, we're told October 1st, you will all adopt it. We're told on September 1st, they're gonna put out a statewide training on it, on how to get it out there, which I don't know what that looks like. They haven't even said. So I'll fill you in when I know more. But by them saying there's training with it, I'm going to assume that means that you will follow this policy.
Is there any other comment from board members or questions? And thank you for sharing your screen, Jamie. I appreciate that. Okay. So it looks like the next action is to get a motion on approving this policy as written so it can go to City Council. If anybody's comfortable making that motion?
I'll make the motion.
All right. I'm going to let you choose, Tom, who was the fastest to put that in the meeting minutes. So we'll say, how about Tom made a motion and can we get a second? Jamie? All right. All in favor? Thumbs up or say aye. Any opposed? Same sign. Okay, the motion passed. Thank you all so much. Thank you so much, Chief, for joining us and for doing the overview on the policies and all the work that you guys do. The next piece on the agenda is the public comment.
Can I make one comment before I go?
Absolutely.
Please. First of all, thank you again for policy time because I can't say it's enough. It's a dry process, and I really threw a curveball at the body worn cameras, and I apologize for that because they did a lot of work on that, and then it got thrown right out. Just want to comment community rally. This is going to come across negative. I don't mean that this way, but I just feel like I should address it. So I know that the neighbors group had the rally a couple Fridays ago at the same time as that other group was in City Hall. We had talked about hoping that we get an invite to go there just to show some community time with the police department, and the opposite happened. And it really, I think that was poorly done. I think that was a good opportunity for us to be able to have some time with the community in a large group. We didn't have to be there, have a booth or anything like that. Although we've been told that if we, have a booth set for a survey and stuff, but whatever. But I just think that would have been a good chance for us to go through. And yet the other thing happened. We get a voicemail from Williamson, whoever she is, saying that be scarce, which I took as an uninvite, be scarce in the area because she didn't want police around. And that the other group would attract those people, which don't know what that means either. So with that, we took that she had some concerns. The group had some concerns about the other group. So we took it upon ourselves to watch those groups all night long to make sure nothing happened. And it appears that nothing did. So that's great. But we just felt that it was it was an opportunity for us as a police department to come in, have some time to get to know some people that may or may not have the opportunity to talk to us generally. And I think it was a missed opportunity, especially from a group that, talks about unity and togetherness and acceptance. And that swept through the PD because everybody's like, oh, we're going to get to see some people. And we kept on day shift and night shift in case there was any issues. And then we had to stay away, and that's fine. I just feel personally, I feel that was too bad that we missed that opportunity. But other than that, we would like to extend the invitation that on the 3rd, Tuesday night, is National Night Out. We're going to have a large presence there, as is Restorative Justice, State Police, Northwestern Medical Center. I believe you're going to be at the Phoenix House. AmCare is going to be giving away COVID shots, Army National Guard, the rec department. We'd love to see some people come down for the neighbors group and meet us, see us. We're going to be there from 4 to 7. We're going to be selling cancer patches. Like, we just raised $1,500 for the cancer fund. We're going to do it again this year. We're going to have hot dogs and giving out some trinkets. We invite anybody to come down. We would like to invite the opportunity to meet with some people and have some open discussions in a very open air location. That's all I got.
Okay, Chief, before you go, I believe one of persons from the public would like to respond directly to you.
Yeah, so that's the
last
part that's
statement.
next on the agenda. So I'm going to bring us to that agenda item. And I think because Ryer would like to do it, obviously, I think he wants you to stay on, Chief. So if you're comfortable staying on for his comment, we're going to move to that next piece on the agenda.
Yep.
Okay. Ryer, if you want to unmute yourself. There you go.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm in my car. I have a downtown meeting to attend in about 10 minutes. Chief, what I wanted to say to you is you are the chief of a police department that has multiple violations, human rights violations against it. You have a police officer who kidnapped and supposedly sexually assaulted a family member. You have a police officer who punched a handcuffed woman in the face. You have a police officer who tased a person minutes within arriving, and you have a current police officer who tackled a child because he was swearing in school and called him the R word. So I appreciate you wanting to be involved in the community. What I would really recommend you do is look into the four tenets of responsible restorative justice. You're jumping right ahead to the idea that you get to like just be forgiven and everything goes on. I haven't heard you as a chief, and I know that a lot of those police officers, all of those police officers, weren't people who you were in charge of, but nevertheless, you've inherited that police department. And so instead of jumping right to the idea that you're just forgiven and you get to move on, I haven't seen your police department or you make a confession of guilt, say an apology even. I haven't even heard an apology. As a child, I learned that you apologize when you do wrongdoing, and I haven't seen any of that from your police department. And so while I appreciate your idea that we should somehow be shamed for not wanting police presence there, I think there are enough community members in this community who don't want the police, and specifically the St. Albans Police Department, present. I was reminded today as I watched the Capitol riot investigation with the police officers testifying that a job is hard, that your job is hard. And I was also reminded that for many people who show Blue Lives Matter, who have that imagery on their social media, which some of your officers do, it isn't about blue lives, it's about being anti-Black lives. And I think that's something else that you should consider as well. So I appreciate you being upset by that. I appreciate you being offended by that. I don't want to be around police. I think community policing is a bad idea. And in fact, most studies show it is. And so I think I really feel bad that you were hurt, that we didn't want police presence there. I really feel bad that you thought you should get an invitation. I didn't see any of you reach out for that invitation. So that's another thing maybe you could consider, that you had some fault in that as well. But maybe instead of being defensive, you should really think about how you're going to go forward. And you should really think about the idea that that they just talked today about how you respond to things. And today was a pretty masterclass in how not to respond to things. Your tone was pretty short when the gendered language came up, and this rebuke feels pretty personal and inappropriate. So I just would like to really have you think about the way that works, and maybe talk to a few more like Black people, because there seems to be a lack of understanding of the Black lens when it comes to policing in this community. So thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Ryer. Okay. Is there anyone who would like Chief to stay present during comment? If nobody jumps at it, I'm gonna thank him for attending and then keep the floor open.
Melinda, before we go back to public comment, I will, I think it was important that Ryer provided that response, and just to bridge that, I think we've talked, Chief, and maybe you've been on the line and not just exactly what Ryer was saying. It's a build up, right? So while we certainly are advocating in many ways to build that bridge at this committee level for police and the community to come together, it is a project and it's a build, and we have to get there. And so I appreciate the follow-up and the courage of both of you to bring up your concerns and have an honest dialogue about it. But I think that's what we're working towards, but it's going to take us a little time to get there as a community. And so I hope we as a board will continue to work with that concept in mind, that there's a gap and we have to fill it, and we have to see it from both sides of the gap.
Thank you. And like I always say, it's a process. And I'm an avid wine drinker. Wine is a process. You don't see grape and you get wine. It's a process.
I would agree. It is a process.
Yeah, and I want to say thanks again for Ryer for your public comment and for putting in the comment to have Chief stay present so he can also hear. I'm grateful to all the people on this call and community members, because the goal is to have unity and to make change in a positive way. So super grateful for that. I think at this portion, we'll continue the public comment. I'll say thank you for joining us, Chief. I appreciate it, and we'll figure out which meeting, it won't be the next one, but which meeting we'll do the quarterly to have you stay through the whole thing, and people will have a heads up on that. But thank you for joining.
Okay, good night.
Have a great night. And I want to open the floor back up. And Ryer too, if you have anything further, feel free to raise your hand. Anybody else from the public that would like to, you can either raise your hand or unmute if there's any other comment.
Can I just say one more thing?
Absolutely.
I just wanted to say, sorry, I'm now in the City Hall auditorium. So I just wanted to say that I think one of the reasons I brought up the gendered language was because I really felt that if I was a man and I read that policy and I had a protective order for me, I would think that I wasn't as much of a priority. And so I totally appreciate the fact. I know that fact is to be true. I understand that, but I think going forward, keeping language that prioritizes one group or another is a better idea. Because for instance, I didn't see anything in the social media, right? The social media policy about how law enforcement, a large percentage of law enforcement tend to belong to online white supremacy groups, but that's a fact as well. So I think keeping identity out of those policies only benefits everyone. So that's all I wanted to say as well.
Thank you, Ryer.
Yeah, thank you. We've made at the policy, as a work group looks at the policies prior to them coming here, we've made a concentrated effort with Chris and with John, who's not here, to capture that. And this was a miss, and I'm glad that you brought it up and we were able to adjust it before it went to City Council. So thank you.
Okay, any other public comment? Okay, I want to thank everyone again. Thank you so much for participating, board members. Thank you to the public that attended. Thank you, Ryer, for the points that you have brought up. And if there are no other thoughts or statements, then I would take a motion to adjourn.
This is Danielle. I'll make a motion to
Thank you.
adjourn.
Thank you, Danielle. And can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Chris. All in favor, say aye or thumbs up.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. All right. Oh, and I wish I would have said this before we adjourned, but another thank you to Tom for taking the meeting minutes. Very much appreciated. What a trooper. I appreciate it. Have a great night,
You're my
everyone.
hero, Tom.